I'm just gonna take a deep breath. Hey guys, it's Jackie here. I've got my coffee here, my big new hat on, and I feel as ready as I'll ever be to make this video. It's gonna be a hard video to make, and it was a hard video to write. But what I've learned is that I can do hard things. This past month, September 2020, is National Suicide Prevention Month in the United States, and September 10th was National Suicide Prevention Day. What I've learned about those days is how unalone I am, how many people there are out there who have spoken up, who have struggled with themselves or with others. Together, we are fighting the stigma. We lose 800,000 people per year globally to suicide, which equates to about someone for every 40 seconds dies by suicide. So it is a topic that's very prevalent, and it's affecting more and more people every year. So I wanted to make this video because I wanted to help others who are going through the same things as me right now in any way that I can. I want to be helpful to people who are dealing with this situation, and I want to make things less lonely for all of us. I'm just gonna take a sip of coffee. I'm so sleepy today. So today I want to talk about 5 things that I recommend you don't say to people who are surviving a recent suicide loss. You need to know how profoundly important it is to talk about suicide with people, whether you're talking to them about their survival through a recent or non-recent suicide loss, or whether you're talking to them about their own suicidal thoughts. It's not a topic to be afraid of. It's not a topic to shy away from, as hard as that is, and as hard as I know that is. It's talking about it saves lives. It's a brave, amazing, and importantly incredible thing for you to do. And I'm gonna link down below some different graphs and pictures that you can look at, or websites that you can look at, that show what sorts of things you can say to people who are having suicidal thoughts, things that are helpful and safe to say. But besides the 5 things I want to talk about, 5 things you shouldn't say to people, I'm gonna also talk about things you can do that are really healthy and helpful to people who are surviving a suicide loss. And that's really my focus here, is for people like me who are surviving a recent close suicide loss. So I've recently lost my dad to suicide, and you need to know that suicide is different from other deaths for many types of reasons. Now, obviously, everyone's loss feels the worst to them, and it's the biggest deal to them, right? Everyone's grief is their own, and that's everyone's right, and every loss is hard. But there's a few reasons that I just want to quickly go over that really make suicide a bit different than other types of losses. And the first that I've really figured out is that there's not a person or a disease that you can really blame for it. I certainly feel so confused most days, and I'm trying to work through that confusion by talking and finding other people like me, talking about certain parts of it more and more. And you can follow my Instagram, which will be down below, where I've been posting regularly about my faith, about mental health, about my personal recent loss of my dad to suicide, and suicide in general. There's still so much stigma around suicide, which makes it even harder to approach than it already is. But if I can let go and get rid of that silence and try to make sense of the personal chaos that suicide leaves behind, then that is what I want to do. I want to help others feel less lonely, less alone, because I know how it feels to feel so alone. And I also want to give other people understanding as well, some sort of understanding or common ground that they might not otherwise be able to find. Maybe this video will only get 1 view, but if that 1 view helps, that's all I could ask for. So starting to get into it now. So I recently read the book A Grief Observed. I'll put a picture here. A Grief Observed by C.S. Lewis, and he talks about the isolation surrounding grief in a really eloquent and profound way. So I'm just gonna read this quote of what he says to start off here. So he says, "An odd byproduct of my loss is that I'm aware of being an embarrassment to everyone I meet. At work, at the club, in the street. I see people as they approach me, trying to make up their minds whether they'll say something about it or not. I hate it if they do, and I hate it if they don't." And to more depth there, but to wrap it up, he says, "Perhaps the bereaved ought to be isolated in special settlements like lepers." So you need to understand that it's this awful atmosphere where everybody in the room knows what's happened to you, and generally they don't know how to relate. They awkwardly approach it, or they awkwardly don't approach it. So even when everybody knows, they can't possibly understand. And you do know that they've got that sympathy or even pity for you, but they don't really know the darkness that's currently surrounding you. So people kind of, at first at least, treat you like you're a bomb about to go off. Like, they'll say the wrong thing and they're afraid they're gonna set you off somehow. But then it's an awkward, lonely environment, because if nobody says anything, then it's like this ugly, huge secret just hanging in the air, just creating this tension. And you feel bad and isolated because, you know, you're the cause of that atmosphere, and it's not just in your head. Everyone's thinking about it. And it's just nothing. There's nothing really anyone can do about that, but it just comes, and it is just isolating in the beginning. So when people are surviving a suicide loss, they feel really cut off from the rest of society. People in our society fear death, and they don't understand it. And they don't generally try to either, because we just all pretend that it's not actually a reality for the most part. And so because of that, they fear comforting you, because you are the one facing this horrible reality that we pretend isn't real. You're the one that has to confront it, and that scares them too. And when it comes to suicide, that's a type of death that we fear even more and understand even less. Therefore increasing all of the negativity and the weirdness that comes with loss. It adds a whole nother layer to your isolation, because there's likely nobody who does or can understand, that does understand or can know really how to approach you, and they want to approach you the way that they used to, but they know that it's different now. So things are just different. So if you're in a close relationship with someone who is surviving a recent suicide loss, it's gonna be really weird. Some nights they're gonna be up till 4 a.m. crying their eyes out and just having a really painful time. Other days they'll seem to be filled with adrenaline and want to do something really reckless or out of character. And everything in between will happen as well, and you will be along for that ride. But despite all of this, I feel really strongly in my faith and have grown in my faith through this. And I want more than anything for my family and younger siblings to share this hope I have in Jesus Christ. And with that, what hope and comfort there is for us who have lost someone so close, and lost someone so close to suicide. But it said, "But take heart, I have overcome the world." And he really has overcome the world. So as a result of this, I'm soon going to be sharing some scriptures I've put together and that friends have helped me put together to be like a guide or like a lifeline to you as you navigate life through grief. So yeah, I'm excited to share that. But for now, comment down below if you are surviving a suicide loss, recent or non-recent, or if you are close to someone who is. I've got a hair here. It's important for us to come together, to find each other, to connect, to feel less alone, and to know that we are normal in all of the grieving, that there's nothing wrong with us. I just want to make things less lonely and more of a comfort. Okay, so getting into the meat of the video, I've identified 5 things to not say to someone who is surviving a recent suicide loss. So number 1, don't act completely normal and talk about random stuff before first acknowledging or acknowledging the situation or offering some sort of condolences. So don't throw a text fully knowing what's happened and be like, "Yo, did you hear the latest Nintendo news?" Or don't go up to the funeral and be like, "Hey, I got a new bike," without saying anything. You should first acknowledge the situation, and if you just text them about random stuff, you likely won't get a response from them, and for good reason. And it's not too late to make that up, to then say, "I'm sorry, I've heard what happened, I'm sorry." You can go from there, and that's fine. But even if it's so awkward, and you don't want to remind them of it, it's important that you acknowledge it and you talk about it so that they don't feel so alien. Really is my train of thought there. Just remember, no matter how awkward you come out in your condolences in what you say, it's okay. It's okay that it's awkward. Everything is going to be weird and awkward and uncomfortable. Just being there makes all the difference for them. Number 2 is maybe a bit surprising, but don't say, "You'll get through this," or similarly, "Things will look up soon." I know a lot of you have heard this, and I've been hearing it, of course, too lately, and it comes from a place of genuine care and people wanting the best for you and things to get better for you. "You'll get through this." That applies to things like exams or a financial burden or a breakup. It's different when it comes to tragic loss. It doesn't really apply to that situation. You don't get through losing a parent in my case, or losing a spouse or a best friend or a sibling or a child to suicide. You learn to live with it, and you should find a way to eventually cope. And you will find some certain healing, but it's not something that you like accomplish or get to the end of or get through. You just learn to carry on carrying that burden. And so even if it comes out and you say that you'll get through this and you want to be there, it's not going to make them mad. It's not going to be harmful, but you need to understand that it doesn't work that way. And there are more effective things that you can say, and I'll get into that. Number 3, not 4. I can count. Don't say that sucks. I had someone recently, like a couple days after it happened, say to me that sucks in place of saying I'm sorry. I don't feel like I need to really go in depth into why you shouldn't say that sucks to this sort of thing. Like it sucks when you lose your keys or you drop your ice cream or you fail a test, but I'm saying that sucks to a tragic loss like this isn't really appropriate. Is not really appropriate. It is not really the right way to approach the situation. Like I can see a 16-year-old kid saying to his best buddy like, yo, that sucks. And that's fine for kids because they don't know any better, and that's just how they talk and that's how they deal with things. But for an adult, it's not the appropriate way to go. Number 4 is the worst one, and I'm surprised I have to say this, but don't say, yeah, my dog died or my dog is gonna die. I had someone recently say this to me when I shared the news with them. And I know it came from a place of wanting to give some sort of consolation or comfort. And I know that they were uncomfortable in talking about it, but not appropriate. It's not that you can never talk about death. On the contrary, it adds some normalcy and comfort to the topic of death if you talk about it with them regularly. I mean, it's not that you can never mention your pet dying or your pet's imminent death either. You can eventually. It's just that don't respond to their news of their tragic loss with my pet is gonna die, and don't respond to them venting or talking about their loss with your pet's death. I get that pets are like family and that hurts you, but it's not the same thing. You losing your pet will not affect you your entire life the way that losing a parent who was a human being who raised me will affect me and my family the rest of my life. And it's almost dehumanizing and really hurtful when you bring up your pet's death to try and bring some sort of consolation. So I don't think anyone else will probably do that, but I just thought I'd mention it anyways. Number 5 is the last one, and it's probably pretty obvious. Don't force them to go into large gatherings or force them to go out. Yes, invite them, make potential future plans with them, like especially if it feels right. If it feels like a good time, or you just want to make sure that you're thinking of them and including them, that's great. Keep inviting them even if they say no, and it's okay if they say no. And if they say no, just leave it alone. And you can keep inviting them even if they keep saying no. You just need to understand that life, especially in the beginning, is extremely exhausting. Your social meter runs out so much quicker than it would before that type of loss. And the loneliness and isolation grows so much worse when you're in large gatherings, because either you'll be on the end where everybody's acting normal and laughing and enjoying their day, which as they should, that's fine, but it's gonna make the person who's grieving feel less cut off from society, because they'll think, how can people be having this great of a time while I'm going through something so awful? And then on the other end, people might be, approaching them a lot and talking to them about a lot, which is also exhausting as nice as it is. So I just guess in the beginning, for the first while at least, you need to understand how tiring it is to be out, and it might not work that way. It might work that they're able to cut out what they're going through and forget it and enjoy the night. That could be the case. I just don't think that is super likely at first. And if they keep saying no, like I said, keep inviting them. There will come a day where they're gonna want to get out of the house and they'll feel okay enough to participate in society. But having said that, if they change their mind last minute or they want to go home early, let them. Leave them. There are so many triggers that go along with this type of loss, and you'll never know what they may be. And they might need to go home way earlier than you expected, or really abruptly, or they might back out last minute and just decide they can't do this. You need to respect that. So those are my top 5 things that I've experienced that are not the best things to say to people. And it won't be the same for everyone either. Everyone grieves differently. And don't expect any timeline of healing. Don't think or build expectations that, oh, in a year they'll be good and we'll do this and this and that. You don't know how they're gonna heal. It's really messy. Experts actually say you're numb your first year. And after that first year is when the grief can hit you full force, after a sudden death like this. So after that first year, the grief can overwhelm them. It's not the same for everyone, but it's proven to be pretty common. So after a year might be the worst that they'll ever be in their grief. That might be how long it takes for them to begin proper and actual mourning. And time feels so weird for them. For me, I've lost my dad a month ago now, just over a month ago. By the time this video is up, it'll probably be well after that. And it feels like it just happened yesterday. In that I have a lot of numbness and rawness and horror still following me around. But at the same time, each day is so exhausting and feels so long that it also feels like it happened a millennia ago. There's so many weird moments of numbness and pure exhaustion and horror that it takes a long time for the grieving and mourning to really be able to take place, especially with all the expectations that come with funeral planning and sorting out their belongings and sorting out their life for them, right? You're so busy and there's so much asked of the family that they don't really have a chance to even properly begin mourning yet. And if they go through a period of seeming okay, don't assume that they'll always be okay. Grieving is not linear. It goes up and down and side to side and it zigzags and it's all over the place. Likewise, if they go through a period of doing really badly, that's not going to last forever either. The good news is nothing is going to last forever in this cycle of grief. And that's also the bad news. You'll never know when they'll be okay again or when they'll get bad again. But what you can do is just be there for them and make sure they're not alone. So like I said, it's been a month since he left us, and it's now that I'm starting to get more frequent waves of deep pain interrupting my everyday disbelief. Now is when I've started to more frequently lose sleep or be up crying or feel physically in pain or riddled with guilt. It becomes too much to bear at moments that have really contributed to me being dissociated in everyday life, like at work and doing things, forgetting things, just being really scatterbrained and confused. And why do I mention this? Because people often say, I hope you're doing better. And it's great that they're checking in, and that they care and that they want the best for you. But oftentimes, after a few weeks, they're not going to be doing better. And you need to understand that this is just when I've barely begun to start doing really poorly. My first month has been weird as heck. I've been so numb and confused and raw. And I've been stuck in my disbelief to the point that I was somewhat functioning and feeling relatively okay most days. But as I begin to slow down in life and understand what happened, I've begun to really understand that he's not going to answer my texts. If I text Dad, he's not going to reply. If I pick up my phone and I call him, it's gonna go to his voicemail over and over and over again. It's starting to really click with me that I can't reach him anymore. That as each day as I go by is the farther it feels away from him. It feels like each day I'm leaving him behind more and more. And that creates even more guilt. And I'm just talking about this because I want you to know what sorts of things are starting to click in my brain that have really just begun my grieving. It's like when you walk through water and the farther you get, the harder it is to push through the water the deeper you get. I've just begun to understand and grieve, and I'm going deeper still and deeper still, and I'm pushing through, and it's getting harder to push through. So it might just be good for you to know that a month after the loss, they won't be starting to be doing better for the most part. They might not even have started at all to grieve. I'm not even in the realm of doing better yet because I haven't even properly started yet. And say what you think feels right to say, but just keep that in the back of your mind, how inconsistent and uncertain and weird this period of time is going to be. So into the good part, what do you say to someone who is surviving and grieving a recent suicide loss? You can say, I'm sorry, I love you, I'm here for you, I'm praying for you, I'm proud of you, I'm hurting for you, you're doing great. You can say any of these things or all of these things, and they're all so simple, but they mean so much. They don't raise any expectations, they don't force any advice on someone, they're just loving and simple things to say. And if you tell someone you're praying for them, really pray for them. It is beyond powerful to talk to God about somebody, and it will be comforting for them to know that someone's taking the time to do that. And really do it. Really take the time to do it, because it makes a huge difference in their life. But that's all you have to say. Just remember they're the same person, and there's some temporary changes in them, and there's going to be some permanent changes in them too. But they're not a new person. They're still the person you know. So don't think about it too much, really. They're just facing something that you will likely and hopefully never have to experience. So all you have to do is be there for them and talk about it. That's it. Just love them. The most important thing that you can do is just love them. And it means a lot to them to hear that you love them. And you might think like, oh, they're so busy, or oh, I don't want to be a burden, I don't want to intrude, I don't want to impose. You're not doing any of those things if you're just saying I love you, I care about you, I'm hurting for you. That's not an imposition whatsoever. That will do so much for them and help them to feel so much less isolated and more loved. You don't need to insert anything or force advice or expect anything from them. Just accept what they're going through and acknowledge what they're going through. You could drop off food or flowers or bring them a tea or anything like that that shows you care. In the first few days, they're not going to have the energy to cook meals. And so it is a really kind gesture to bring something by to them, even if you don't talk to them, if you just drop it at their house. So any little kindness or help in that regard is totally appropriate. And lastly, what I think is the most important part of all of this is you really should say something, even just a text to let them know right away that you're there for them. That's all you really need to do, because to be completely honest, there's not much that you can do besides love them and pray for them and offer support and acknowledge. Your silence is part of the stigma, part of why there's so much stigma around mental health and shame around mental health and shame around suicide, and there doesn't need to be and there shouldn't be. Your silence will contribute to the cycle. If you say something and you normalize talking about it and just making them know that they're not alone at the very least, that can potentially break the cycle. It can save more lives because they're not so alone and feeling so isolated. Like I said, do not believe that you're an imposition. You should acknowledge what's happened to them, especially if you're a close friend or family member. I can't stress enough how important this is. If you feel like you need to give them a few days or a couple weeks out to just like have that time, that's okay, but make sure you say something before too long. I have some close friends in my Bible study group who didn't text me, didn't call me, didn't stop by, didn't say anything to me, and a few of them actually walked by me in church when I finally came back to church. And that sucks, like that hurts. Most people have been absolutely amazing. People I barely even know have been absolutely amazing. But when you've got loved ones or friends in a group and you expect them to support you and they're not there, I can't even describe how much more that adds to your grief and how much harm that does. It really adds stress and anxiety and isolation and all of the terrible things right on top of what's actually been lost to them. Yeah, I feel disappointed, and I'm trying not to dwell on that too much, and I'm mentioning it here and talking about it so that hopefully people won't do this to friends and family. Hopefully you won't walk past them at church. Hopefully you'll at least give them a text and acknowledge what's happened. Because like I said, that's the silence, shame, isolation is contributing to the cycle. It's making more people feel alone and have less hope. They're hopeless. So give people hope, at least try. and just be a friend. So it's a hard road that I have to walk, and many others are walking this hard road. But I want to offer support to anyone going through the same thing as me. Even if we're not friends, if I don't know you at all, you can talk to me. You can talk to me about suicide. You can talk to me about mental health. You can talk to me about anything, because I want to be there for people, and I will never let someone be left behind. I often feel really lonely, like I'm grasping for straws, looking for someone who can relate to what I'm going through. And I want to talk to anyone in a similar boat and like do anything that I can for them, because that would make me feel less alone, and I know it would help others. And I'm comfortable to talk about it. I'm comfortable to talk about suicide and mental health, and I'm comfortable to talk about how misguided I was about that too. And I'm comfortable to talk about it in the church, because we're losing too many people to suicide. Too many people are grieving this type of loss. Too many people are struggling every day and don't know who to talk to and feel ashamed. Don't be ashamed. There's nothing to be ashamed of. People who are at a loss like me, I just want them to know that I'm right there with you, as well as people who are close to someone who's lost someone to suicide. For example, like my boyfriend, who has never experienced anything like this and now has to deal with all of the things that I'm going through right up close. This video is also for people like that, who want to know what inner thoughts they're having, what inner struggles, and what things are not helpful to say. Even if you watch this video because you've got like a classmate or something who's going through this and you want to offer some sort of condolences or acknowledgement, this video is for them too, because it's hard for them too. You need to remember, no matter what you're going through, there's always hope. The story is not over yet. You're gonna go through storms that feel like they're never gonna pass, and they might last a long time, but they will pass. Every storm will pass. The story is not over yet. There's hope. There's no need to try to be strong if you can't be strong. Don't try to be strong on your own. You don't need to. Comment down below if there's anything I can pray for you for. I've been spending so much time talking to God, and I would love to talk to him about you. Anything, you can DM me on Instagram, on Twitter, on Discord. You can comment down below. Anything that you would want me to pray for you for or talk to me about, do it. I'm here. I'm 100% devoted to doing this for you. Last but not least, I'll be posting this video onto a blog I'm launching. I'm gonna make this into a blog post so that hopefully people who are researching or looking for some sort of comfort or someone like them, or want to know something that's good to say to comfort somebody else, hopefully they'll find it. I just want to get this all out there, even if it doesn't get very many views. I just want to do something to have other people feel less alone and fight that stigma. So yeah, my blog will also be including talks about mental health and faith and suicide and all of those things that have now become my life. And there'll be things on there that are not on YouTube here, and that's okay too, so I'll promote it on my Instagram and Twitter and in future videos so you can find it. Thanks for watching this video, for sitting through it. It means so much to me, and it honestly feels so good to get this all out. And I will be making more videos. Not sure what other videos about grief and ending the stigma I'll do yet, but I'm for sure working on some vlogging and some thrift hauls and little gentle things like that. Maybe some gratitude videos, things that mean something to me and hopefully will mean something to you guys and other people as well. So thanks guys, I hope to have videos up soon and consistently. Thank you for being patient with me. Take care. I care about each of you. I'm really thirsty now. I need a drink. I will do my best to be sharing more. So thanks guys for watching. Bye.